Well, as you know, President Donald Trump made a controversial decision Thursday to pull the United States out of the landmark international agreement, the Paris Accord. It commits nearly every nation to take action to curb global warming. So now that decision has been met with dismay by environmentalists, foreign allies, and a significant number of influential business leaders. VOA's White House correspondent Pete Heinlein has our report.
4 months into his presidency, Donald Trump made good on a campaign promise.
Withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
He argued that the Paris Accord saddled the United States with onerous regulations that would stymie economic growth. Environmental activists and Obama administration officials were predictably disappointed at seeing years of hard work to bring the United States into a global climate pact effectively undone.
The U.S. has always been the strongest and most progressive negotiator on that kind of equal playing field on this. So if the U.S. negotiators are not at the table, we lose one of the strongest, most compelling voices to make sure that Paris fulfills that promise.
More surprisingly, the chiefs of some of the biggest names in American business took out a full-page ad in leading newspapers rebutting Trump's claim that the accord would cost jobs and competitiveness.
So what does this mean for the United States and for the rest of the world? Joining us now in the studio, VOA White House correspondent Pete Heinlein, who filed that report for us, along with VOA science and technology reporter Steve Baragona. I thank you both for joining us, gentlemen. Pete, as you said in your report, the outcry was predictable. But how does the president justify withdrawing from this accord that's been signed by nearly 200 other countries? There's only 3 other countries that did not join.
Well, how does he justify it? He says it would be a big drain on our economy, on economic growth. You see, voters in America vote their pocketbooks, and he is hoping that he can grow the economy 3 to 4%, and in 2020, voters will say he's done a good job and we'll re-elect him.
By the way, that 3 to 4% growth rate is something many economists have said is unlikely. But Steve Baragona, I want to get you to answer that point. Is remaining with the Paris Accord likely to hurt U.S. economic growth?
I'll say that a lot of economists have said that trying to move into this clean energy economy actually creates a lot more jobs. I mean, right now, there's something like 50 to 60,000 coal jobs and something like 300,000 jobs in the solar sector alone. So the idea that pulling out, that there's this contradiction between climate protection and job growth, a lot of economists say you can actually have both.
Pete, I know you suggested that the president is following through on his promise to those who supported him in the election, but isn't it also true that most American polls suggest that the majority of Americans actually believe that climate change is real and that's something we can do about it?
I think that is true. However, the majority of Republican voters may not. And the country is divided 50-50, and he is playing to his crowd. In his political calculation, he's decided he wants to go for his base. He wants to energize his base, and he doesn't think he can win over any supporters from the other side. So to him, it's a pretty safe political calculation.
And Steve, the president, in his speech yesterday, said that he was going to make sure that the rest of the world was not going to be laughing at the United States. But I noticed that the United States now joins Syria and Nicaragua.
Well, and
as the only countries that have pulled out of that.
Nicaragua didn't join because they didn't think it went far enough. So really, and Syria has other fish to fry at the moment. So it really is an elite club that we're joining.
So Pete, China recommitted itself, joined the European partners to basically say, we're standing behind you and we're going to go follow through on this Paris Climate Accord. Is there a danger here that we're leaving China an opening for greater influence on the world stage and we're being left behind? Is that something?
Absolutely. World opinion is overwhelmingly in favor of the idea that we have to take immediate action to mitigate climate change. And by stepping back from the Paris Agreement, many people in the international community see that as abdicating our role as a leader in this fight.
In fact, French President Emmanuel Macron actually did something that was kind of unprecedented. He spoke in English to Americans to talk about why this is the wrong decision. And he even said, make the planet great again. Do you think that kind of messaging helps or does it hurt?
Well, I don't think President Trump has much interest in what the French president has to say at this point. He's, an America First guy through and through. I think what I'm hearing from a lot of folks is that the fact that Trump is pulling out of this agreement is actually galvanizing the forces that wanted to stay in and want to take more action. So it's possible that, in a weird way, this may result in more action being taken on climate change, even if the U.S. federal government is not part of it.
So you actually see a positive here?
I wouldn't say it's a positive, but there are ways that this can be not as negative. One thing that it's important to note that Paris, first of all, was not going to be enough to keep us to the limit of 2 degrees Celsius of warming that scientists have said is kind of like a semi-arbitrary, but it's a threshold beyond which really bad things happen. Paris was not going to get us there. Everything that Trump has done up to this point was designed to keep the United States from reaching its Paris commitments. So the fact that he pulled out of Paris, in a way, is kind of a formality. Now it's going to be up to the states and the cities to try and pick up the slack.
I'll get back to the benefits of acting or not acting on this, but Pete, the mayors of 50 other American cities basically have said, no, we're going to stick with the guidelines of the Paris Accord. Is there a danger here of actually dividing the country even further?
I don't think you can divide the country much further on this
issue.
Than it
already is.
That's right.
Well, what's going to divide us now is that I'm out of time. I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much, Pete and Steve, and to all of our correspondents today. But that is our show. We will be back again next week to talk more about this issue and other issues on another edition of The Correspondents. In the meantime, stay up to date with the latest news from around the world. Just go to voanews.com. You can also check out all of our shows there. Click on the Watch tab. We're also on Facebook and YouTube at VOA The Correspondents. Thank you for watching. I'm Millar Sega for now. So long from Washington.